And the dangers don't stop there. In an effort to get this stuff to market, the tar sands producers moved right past the massive water pollution issues and focused on the transport problem, the sticky gloppiness of bitumen. This is where Enbridge comes in, and one of the reasons we're so concerned about their transport expansion through Wisconsin. By mixing every 3 barrels of bitumen sludge with 1 barrel of thinning chemicals, it turns out it will go through a pipe. They call this mixture diluted bitumen, or dilbit for short. It isn't oil in the sense we're used to, but a new mixture which is much harder to clean up. When the pipeline breaks, the thinning chemicals turn to gases, entering the air we breathe. Historically, Enbridge has insisted we're not allowed to know what these chemicals are. Why in the world would disclosing these volatile chemicals be a problem for Enbridge? It's not like if we learn their secret, we're going to go home and make little pipelines of our own. So why hide it, unless they're very dangerous chemicals? And that's exactly what Wise Alliance has discovered. After repeated demands that Enbridge disclose the content of the diluent it uses, they finally handed a long list of chemical ingredients to our Dane County Zoning Board. When we looked it over, chemical names like benzene, hexane, and hydrogen sulfide jumped off the page. These chemicals can cause health effects such as leukemia, nervous system damage, and fatal respiratory paralysis. Meanwhile, much of the bitumen sludge left behind after the off-gassing of these toxic diluent gases tends to sink to the bottom of any creek bed or riverway that it might happen to land in, requiring a tremendous amount of dredging. That's exactly what happened at the Kalamazoo River near Marshall, Michigan. Geese and ducks look great painted on the sides of storage tanks. Less great struggling on the banks of the Kalamazoo River, painted with oil from the rupture of Line 6B and unable to fly. This Michigan disaster was the most expensive onshore oil spill in U.S. history, requiring over 4 years and $1.2 billion to clean up. And residents of the area suggest they are only too familiar with places where the oil still oozes up from below the riverbed. Another sobering fact to keep in mind. Just over 1 million gallons of tar sands oil gushed from Line 6B into the Kalamazoo River over a period of 17 hours. Line 61 could dump that much oil into the Wisconsin River in 25 minutes. The control center is in Alberta, Canada. They have no local control center down here, and in the case of Line 6B spill, they thought they had an air bubble. They stopped and started and stopped and started the line, actually dumping more oil into Talmadge Creek, which then flowed into Kalamazoo after they realized they had a problem than beforehand. And now they've installed a pipeline in Wisconsin that is a flow rate 35 times that spill rate into the Kalamazoo. There have been more than 800 spills and pipeline breaches on Enbridge lines, and that's counting only their reporting for the years between 1999 and 2010. I urge you to find someplace where you know the pipeline comes through and pick that town, click satellite map on Google Maps so you can see the visual from space. Follow the ugly haircut that is the pipeline corridor running all the way from Superior down to the Illinois border, and then zoom in and look at all the places where it's patched over and over and over and over and over again, right above the St. Croix River, just before it enters the National Scenic Riverway there, you'll find they've been digging right along the line. It's an eye-opening experience. You'll see houses right along the pipeline, you'll see churches, you'll see barns. Built way back in 1969, Line 6A carried the same tar sands oil through Wisconsin that traveled on to Michigan and ended up in the Kalamazoo River. So why didn't it burst instead into our St. Croix National Scenic Riverway, or the Namakagon, or the Wisconsin? We've probably been lucky so far. And Enbridge called that 2010 Kalamazoo spill the worst day in their history and said they'd completely revamped their safety procedures as a result. Well, Line 14, which runs right alongside Enbridge's other pipelines through the heart of Wisconsin, ruptured well after Enbridge's updated safety claims. In 2012, more than 50,000 gallons sprayed out of Line 14 in Grand Marsh, Wisconsin. coating a farm and a number of terrified animals in oil. What happened in Grand Marsh could hardly be described as a leak. It just blew like an oil well, one resident told the dispatcher for the Adams County Sheriff's Department. When the geyser subsided, more than 17,000 tons of contaminated soil had to be ripped out and trucked away from the property. And where do they take it to? I mean, it just doesn't go away. As the damage to livestock and farmland in Grand Marsh was still being assessed, the Federal Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or FEMSA, was typing up an emergency corrective action order to Enbridge. And this is what they had to say about Enbridge's safety record. Quote, "The history of failures on respondent's Lakehead pipeline system, the defects originally discovered during construction of Line 14, a 2007 failure on Line 14, and the July 2010 failure on Line 6B in Marshall, Michigan, and additional failures throughout all parts of the Lakehead system indicate that respondent's integrity management program may be inadequate. FEMSA has communicated its long-standing concerns about this pattern of failures with respondent over the past several years. Given the nature, circumstances, and gravity of this pattern of accidents, additional corrective measures are warranted." What is most important about the FEMSA letter above is the date. Enbridge had said that in 2010 the Kalamazoo spill was the worst day of their lives, and that as a result they'd fundamentally changed their safety practices. 2 full years later, as the oil lay congealing on the soils of Grand Marsh, FEMSA described a very different record. Imagine a pipeline that can fill 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools and be working on a 4th every single hour, every hour of the day. If the Kalamazoo spill took 4 years and over $1 billion to clean up, what will happen to Wisconsin if a pipe flowing at a rate more than 30 times faster than that leak in Michigan were to explode onto our farmlands, lakes, or rivers? Nobody knows. And just when we thought we'd seen it all, we've recently gotten word that Enbridge is in the early development stages of twinning Line 61. Yes, they plan to add a new line equal in diameter to the massive Line 61, the largest tar sands pipeline in North America. And some residents along the corridor have been told a new diluent chemical return line is slated to be put in right alongside it. The pipeline corridor through Wisconsin is already completely full. So to pull this off, Enbridge will need a significant chunk of new land next to the existing corridor and stretching all the way from Superior in the north down to the Illinois border.